See, I timed it down to the last second that time, right? Hi, folks. Welcome to the 6,000 subscriber YouTube streams here. I've had a lot of fun doing this. And my next guest, I am so excited that he could come on because he belongs to a company that I really have been impressed with over the years. And I'm just going to go ahead and introduce him now. It is Justin Jacobson from Restoration Games. Hello, sir.
Hello. Good to see you. Happy to be here.
What I got a billion questions. I sent you a few. I gave you a few. I have a billion questions here, and
so it's just one long lightning round then.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. That's right.
That works.
Now, first off, have you ever heard of a guy who lives on an island and would do board game reviews? Have you ever heard of someone like that?
I mean, England's an island.
England is an island. Yeah, maybe. There's a guy from England. His name's Luke from Down from the Attic. Really great channel.
I know you're referring to my good friend Bernard. He loves when people call him Bernard.
He does. Or just straight.
Hi, Bernardo.
Yeah, but Bernardo put you in my target range. He said, "You need to talk to my boy Justin." I was like, "Your boy Justin?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Okay." And so I'm glad you accepted here. Folks, if you don't know, Restoration Games takes old games from our childhood and just reimagines them into epic games. And it's amazing the level of creativity that goes into this. And that's why I probably will never work for this company, because I couldn't be as creative as these guys have been. And so, Justin, my first question to you is, how did the creation of Restoration Games even start?
I feel like I've told this story before, but I know obviously not everyone's heard it. So if you have, you can join along. But so I've been a gamer my entire life. I played games when I was a kid. My whole family played games, and especially I had cousins who lived, bike ride away. And our dads, my dad and my uncle, were big gamers even before that. They would play war games in college. These old school war games. They played Dungeons and Dragons like when it first came out. That sort of thing. And so we sort of grew up in that environment where we would go over and just play board games all day. And because of that sort of hobby level interest from them, we were playing like all the early Euro games, all these sort of more obscure games, things like that. And then even, beyond that as well. So I've been a gamer my entire life, literally, one of my hobbies since I was born. And it's funny. So when I went to law school, I kind of fell out of it a little bit. And then, or went college into law school. And then when I graduated from law school and I was practicing law, one of the things I would always do is go to Gen Con every year. And I would put on a legal Q&A seminar so that I could write off the trip as a business expense. And I would basically put on this seminar for an hour, and people would come and they'd ask me questions about, like, can I copyright my D&D character or whatever, all these questions. All related. Yeah, exactly. And then one year after I had given the seminar, a nice young woman came up to me and said, "Listen, my husband's getting ready to leave Hasbro, and we'd like to take you to dinner so we can ask you some questions." And that was Lindsay Davio, Rob's wife, who's a gamer, and she's works for Restoration now. To fast forward a little bit, she's our production superhero. She basically takes all the art and rules and graphic design, all that, and makes it perfect for the manufacturer to go to print. So we went to dinner. Rob was getting ready to leave Hasbro. He had just done Risk Legacy, and he wanted to do a legacy game, which turned out to be Seafall. Ironically, that came out after the first one, which was the Pandemic Legacy they ended up doing with Matt Leacock. And we just talked about like whether or not he could do it, what his options were as far as like trying to trademark or this, that, and the other thing. Anyway, ever since then, I had kept in touch with him. I helped review his contracts and things like that. I just sort of, and I've done that for other people in the industry as well over the years, mostly like contract reviewing or drafting contracts or just some general legal questions. is sort of my pro bono work that I would do as a lawyer because it was fun. It was in games. It wasn't like boring credit card, lawsuits and things.
Right.
And so I think that sort of like got me back into it. And like I started getting back into gaming and stuff like that. And then one day, it's literally in the shower. I just had this. So, okay, sorry, one more step back. So when the D20 license came out for Dungeons and Dragons for 3rd edition, there was like this big, stampede of third-party publishing, and I did that just for kicks. I used to do some D&D supplements under the third-party license, and I had some fun with that. That's sort of self-publishing route because I was, I had my law practice, but I could do it on the side, sort of thing. It wasn't a big deal. One day in the shower, I just had this idea of, I think it was someone was on Board Game Geek and was talking about like the Grail games, and they wanted Star Wars Queen's Gambit to come back. They're like, someone needs to bring this back. And this was right when Kickstarter was taking off.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, with Kickstarter, you could actually do something like this, because without Kickstarter, for a startup company, that would have been a huge gamble. Like if it didn't work, or if there were problems, or just getting the capital to pull it off, to the startup capital for that would have been almost impossible. I mean, not impossible, but a challenge, and certainly not. Yeah, and certainly not while you're running a law practice. So I had this idea, and I sort of just thought about it, but it wouldn't let go. Like I kept coming back to it. I couldn't let it go for whatever reason. I just kept coming back to it. And so one day I was talking to Rob, and I said, I just threw this idea out at him, and he had left Hasbro by this time. And we started talking about it. We started talking about the games that we played when we were kids. I remember he talked about Pathfinder, which is this old game where it's a maze building game, which was kind of cool. We talked about Dragon Master, a trick taking game that we ended up doing, becoming Indulgence, and some of these other games. And like, man, there's all these great games that sort of came out before this resurgence in the gaming hobby that we could bring back, and sort of people who knew them would like it, and people who were new to the hobby would still get access to these cool games. And we just talked about it for some more. And then I was also at the same time getting totally burnt out on the practice of law. And I went to lunch with a couple of my friends from high school who were both incredibly successful in their own right. And they basically, gave me the push and said, look, you need to do this. And my wife was incredibly supportive. I basically sold the law practice. I made Rob an offer he couldn't refuse. Come join me. We'll do restoration games. I'll do all the grunt work. You just have to worry about designing games. I mean, Rob does more than that, but that's his focus. He doesn't.
We'll rule the galaxy as father and son.
Exactly. Sure. And my wife was incredibly supportive. She said, go for it. And, in retrospect, it seems like, the rest is history. It's easy peasy. I mean, there's obviously a bit of a gamble those first few games. Would it work or not? But it did, and here we are. And so people really, it was one other funny story I want to tell. So I'm down here in South Florida, and for a few years before I ever started this, I had become friends with Tom Vassell of the Dice Tower. He's down here. I had done some legal work for him, like pro bono stuff, just to help out. And he's always telling people, like the people are always, especially when Kickstarter came along, I want to become a game publisher, right?
Yeah.
And so he's always saying, like, don't do that, like you don't become a publisher, like it's not as easy as it looks. And I went to him one day when we had decided we were going to do this, and I said, Tom, I'm going to start a game publishing company. I said, wait a minute, hear me out. And I told him what the hook was and what the games we were looking at. And he thought for a second and said, you know what? That's actually not bad. And so that was like, I knew, okay, we have something here. And people have just responded to that idea. And that's what's given us our success. I've rambled on immensely. So
I actually remember the moment Tom Vassell made the announcement that y'all had started up and what your whole purpose was. And he had an abundance of excitement about the idea. So obviously you talked to him about what you had planned or what you were thinking about doing. And I remember him being very exuberant and just explaining like, their logo's really cool. They have a great idea. I'm excited what they can see. And I mean, he really built it, because that was the first time I remember I'd heard of y'all was through Tom Vassell, the Dice Tower. He'd made an announcement. Y'all had announced your big kickoff. And I was like, what? Because of course, I'm a big vintage game lover too. We grew up same as you. Not only were board games played on rainy days. Okay, if it was raining, back in the day before there were big video games, we played with something called our imagination. And so, kids, we went outside, and a stick was a sword, or a gun if you broke it off on the branch just right. You know, I mean, the world was, the outside was your playground. The reminder for us to come home was when the street light turned on. That's when your mom told you got to make it home at the end of the day because the street light's coming on. So the only time we stayed inside was when it was raining, and that was board games. And on top of that, there was always a board game night as a family growing up. Now, usually it was Monopoly or Risk or Sorry or something like that. Just those classic games. But that's how I grew up as well. A few things I was taking here notes. Here, I want to show Bernardo's little thing there. Step 1, go to law school. Step 2, write off board game conventions. Yeah, and then step 3, become a publisher. It's that easy, folks. And I mean, that his idea in the shower varies from my idea in the shower. My idea in the shower is like, I really need to switch shampoos. That's the best idea I think I've ever had.
Listen, I do my best. There's no way around it. I do my best thinking in the shower. I don't know what it is.
That's right. Hey, that's true. And for those who don't know, Risk Legacy was a breakthrough in board games. That was when I first heard about it. I knew what Risk was. I was confused about what Legacy meant, and I was confused about the whole concept. And I stayed away from Legacy games for that reason. And I regret that because I've now been into Legacy games. I see it, and that's just an incredible concept. So great creativity, great imagination there for coming up with that. And then what was the other one here? Oh, yes. And as you know, a good business decision, if you're taking notes from Justin and I, so I took my note is, if you have a law practice and you want to start a board game publisher, you go with that one because that seems to be way more successful.
I mean, listen, success is not just the take home, the check, and like I said, the practice of law is first of all, it's very different from when I started. So I'm an old fuddy duddy. I turned 50 last year. I had been practicing for 20 years at the time, and it had changed quite a bit from when I started. It used to be, and even more so before I started, it was starting to change even when I was getting started, but it used to be a very noble profession. Everybody was, a lot of parallels to what you see, in politics, for example, same sort of thing. It's just the whole practice has changed. And in particular, the area of law that I did has changed immensely. So I was doing mostly like debt collection work, which these days, I mean, and it was, these days it is just soul sucking work, honestly.
Yeah.
When I started, it wasn't. It was really about like making, payment arrangements so people could get back on their feet. And it was actually fairly rewarding in a lot of ways. And just over time, it's changed just so much, from top to bottom, really.
Yeah.
My wife, for example, completely opposite. She's a lawyer too. I met her in law school. We had completely diametrically opposed practices. She works in federal court, doing these sort of complex litigation cases, and she loves it. And her stuff's a lot more interesting and fulfilling than what I was doing. But
well, and the old saying goes, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
It's 100% true. It's funny, like even these days with restoration, we'll have like a day off for whatever reason. So we have these regular calls. The whole team works throughout the whole country. Like no one's really next to each other than a few of the people. And so we work, we just get on Zoom calls a few days a week, and then all these extra sort of breakout calls and things like that when we're working on projects and whatnot. And, if we, for whatever reason, it's like a holiday or something, we're canceling a call, like I get upset a little bit because these are my friends, and the work is fun and all that. So. Yeah.
I totally get that. I love what I do, and never change either. If you love what you do, that's what's most important. Now, what game you grew up playing games? What games were your go-to games back in the day?
Well, I mean, we played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons, so but we're taking RPGs out of it. We just there, it's funny. People these days like have these big collections. Like my uncle had that game collection that literally hundreds of games. It was
Wow.
that bananas, and so it would be a bunch of different games. Like, and we would try new things. I remember we played a lot of Cosmic Encounter back then. Dune, same sort of same designer, similar. What else did we play? I don't know. I mean, we played a lot of Civilization. This was Advanced Civilization.
Mm-hmm.
We played a lot of the old bookshelf games like Rail Baron and stuff like
Right.
that. So
Wow. All
yeah, it
right.
was pretty cool. And so it's funny, he still has all these games. So when I started the company, literally the first thing I did was I went over to my uncle's house, cousin's house, and just went through all their closets. So they have, it's like 5 different closets shoved, to the rafters with games. And that's where I pulled out like Dragon Master and some of all these old games that we were taking a look at. I remember one of the big ones was had a lot of these. I forget what they're called. They were from Milton Bradley. They were really big ones. There was Fortress America and
Shogun.
Shogun, and then the pirate one, Broadsides and
Broadsides and
and
swords.
Broadswords and battles, whatever that one.
Broadsides and whatever. Yeah. Battle cannons or whatnot.
And I pulled that one out because oh man, and the book is huge, of course. And you open it up and it's like these giant, plastic ships, and so some of that informed the direction we were looking at for the first games that we did. Like, what games would work? What games were worth bringing back? How would we treat them? How would we bring them back? I mean, in retrospect, I think we made the right choices about our approach, but it wasn't obvious at the time, right? Were we going to do straight reprints? What kinds of things were we going to update? That sort of thing.
Right. And Johnny, to answer your question, it was Conquest of the Empire. I had the original copy. Someone gave it to me as a kid. He said, I'm not going to play this. You like board games. I'd never seen, this is the guy who grew up playing Monopoly, Clue, all this, regular ones. I saw this game, I was like, what is this? Dice, the plastic coins, like, this is a treasure. And I studied it and played it to death. I used to play Conquest of the Empire all the time. You still do, yeah. That it's an amazing, incredible game. Eagle Griffin Games actually reprinted it a while back. And before I was back into board games, I remember buying the reprint. When I heard they were doing it, I was like, I got to get another copy of that, because by then my little brothers had gotten to the copy and pieces were broken or gone and missing. I was so heartbroken. So getting back to Restoration Games, y'all's first game you decided on was Stop Thief. How was that decision made?
Well, so actually we ended up doing was 3 games at once, which was a little, in retrospect, kind of bananas. And because we wanted to sort of do a line, like we wanted to come out as a line. And our creed when we started the company was we wanted to be a 2-year company in year 1 and a 5-year company in year 2. And so we said, let's release 3 games. And we thought carefully about, like I said, when we did a survey, I remember going down to the Dice Tower East. It was just Dice Tower Con at the time. And going around with my little iPad, and we had a survey on it, and I was handed to people, and they would take the survey about like what games they wanted us to bring back, and had a bunch of games, and like people would just check the ones they wanted to, that sort of thing. And we wanted like 3 different price points and 3 different styles of game. And so we did Downforce, Stop Thief, and Indulgence. Sort of all came out at Gen Con that year. So Stop Thief seems like it came out first because we did a Kickstarter for that one.
That's true.
The other 2 we just brought straight to retail, but they were released into distribution at the same time. So Stop Thief was sort of, and the reason why we chose it for the Kickstarter was it had that thing that we have now sort of learned is like a big driver, is it has the hook. And in this case, it's that electronic component, right?
Right.
So we really like games where you can go back and say, this is a game from 1979, and since then there has still not been another game like it that combines this electronic component that's a hidden movement game, which is, is one of the very first hidden movement games of all time.
Yeah.
But it also was based on audio clues, not like, another player, that someone else with the computer was playing the hidden person and just giving you sound clues. Like nothing had ever been done like that since. So it was a perfect game to bring back. And, we could take that chunky plastic electronic piece and put it on an app, right? And it just worked perfectly. And then something like Downforce was sort of, so the other thing is if it's sort of personal to us for a lot of the games, it helps. Yeah. And Rob, that was a game that he played a lot with his kids when they were younger as Daytona 500.
Right.
So it's been a few different iterations, but that was the one that he played.
Downforce is my nephew's favorite.
Oh, cool.
that is by far, they went bonkers over that game.
Cool.
So yeah, great ones. And look, Chris says he still has his original Stop Thief. Yeah, there you go. Now the next one I want to talk about, I want to show everyone. This is my first journal I had back in the 80s. This is an OG Return of the Jedi, my Jedi journal. I got this. There's only 6 years between the two of us, Justin.
Okay.
And so in 1988, Christmas of 1988, I'd gotten I had Christmas. This is one of the things I got was this journal. So January 1st, I want to show everyone this if I can. January 1st, it's Sunday, January 1st, 1989. And I wrote down Happy New Year. And then I do a list of what I got for Christmas. Number 2, Fireball Island.
There you go.
Fireball Island. This is my very first post. And then of course after that
I have to ask, what is Tacky Wacky?
I don't tacky. Yeah, hold on. I was reading over some of this. Tacky Wacky. Hold on. There's a few others in here. There's a candy bar box. I don't know what that means.
It's got to be good though. I mean,
pencils. I said, hold on. What was it? The other one that got me. The other one that got me laughing was. Oh yeah. Look, I don't know what this said. Is this? Hold on. What number is it? 14. Slazer, Glazer. What is that?
Was Slayer a band back then? Did you get like a Slayer album? I don't know.
Did I get a Slayer album? I doubt it at that age. I don't know. But Fireball Island was, I remember, because my grandmother asked me, what do you want for Christmas? And my dad gave me the stern look going, do not tell your grandmother what to get you. Let you be happy with whatever your grandmother gets you. So I was not allowed to talk to grandmother. So what I did, I didn't tell her. I just happened to write down what I wanted for Christmas and just left it on the coffee table as we went back home.
Sure.
And when I hugged her, I said, there's something on the coffee table for you.
Very smooth of you.
Yeah, my dad knew I wanted Fireball Island. He also knew it was an expensive game, and grandma's not going to pay that much. You're not worth that much. So he knew I wasn't supposed to tell my grandmother. Well, I didn't necessarily. Of course, she got me the game, and I opened it up, and my dad looked at me. He said, "Did you?" And he said, "Mom, did he talk to you?" She went, "Baby, he didn't say a word to me."
Technically true.
Which is true, because my dad was mad. He's like, "I can't believe you bought that big game for him." But I don't have the original copy, but I bought one back before the prices on the original one just went crazy nuts. Yeah. I grabbed one a long time ago, and I played that game a zillion times as a kid, a zillion times. And I remember, and I said this for years. There was, and I don't know if you recall this, there was a promotional video that leaked on YouTube a long time ago. Do you remember this?
No.
Where they were talking about.
Oh, yes.
It was a pitch for expansions to Fireball Island. Now, I don't know if it was real or fake, but basically.
Oh, it was real. It was real.
Okay, so basically.
We actually spoke to the people who did that when we were working on our thing. Yeah.
Yeah, because what they had is an idea to make indentions into the island and then attach expansions, multiple other islands that do other things. So it just keeps the game going a little bit longer because it makes the path, instead of going straight, now you have to take a shoehorn, horseshoe turn around another island to get back to the main island. And you could do that up to, I can't remember, 6 times or something, because they had six different expansions. And I watched that video. I mean, gosh, probably 100 of those views were me. Because I was going, they got to make this. They've got to make. But by then it was like a few years old. I said, okay, they obviously passed on this. Yeah. They didn't want to. Then you guys made the earth-shattering announcement at Gen Con that you were doing Fireball Island. And I remember exactly, I was on vacation. And my phone blew up with text going, did you hear what they announced? And before he even said, I said, it's Fireball. They said Fireball Island. They said Fireball Island. And we were so excited. Folks, Fireball Island has got to be one of the most incredible games of my lifetime. It was, and by the way, 30 years later, wouldn't you know, I get my Kickstarter package of Fireball Island with the expansions. And it is what I call it is a mad free-for-all. It's almost like when you're a kid going to, to the easy Easter egg hunt, and there's like 1,000 Easter eggs, you're like, where do I go first? Because everywhere's the winner, but your mind's everywhere. And you've opened up this world on this island where you can do anything, go anywhere, and score points. Who's to say which strategy works best? Because there's a billion different strategies. And I love it and hate it at the same time because there's chaos everywhere. There's fireballs. You have the expansion. There's snakes. There's bees, which is so much fun. There is the absolute best one. There's a flying tiger, which is from the I'm guessing it's from the Ants in the Pants.
It's based off that. Yeah. I mean, it's a different.
When I saw that, I was like, this is incredibly. I've never seen that since Ants in the Pants. It made me want to go buy Ants in the Pants and have flying ants on the island too, because that flying tiger cracks me up. And then the image of a tiger doing cartwheels over the entire island is just great in my mind. The zaniness and chaos that goes into it is unbelievably fun.
So I mean, so like I said, since we started the company, and even today, if you go to my website now, you can go right at the top and type in a game you want to see. And people love doing it. We love hearing what the games people like. There were like the big 3 that we always had requested was Fireball Island, Dark Tower, and Hero Quest. And obviously Hasbro is bringing back Hero Quest. That's fine. We won't talk about that. We just are doing Return to Dark Tower. But Fireball Island was always sort of at the top of the list. And honestly, Rob's the same age as I am. We were a few years too late for it. So that 4-year gap is like right in the sweet spot there.
Right.
We were a few years, by then we were a little bit too old for it. And
you're doing the D&D.
Yeah, exactly. But you can tell just by looking at the game, right? Like, and it's the same thing I said with Stop Thief. Like, there hasn't been a game since that's really, I mean,
been that unique.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And part of it is it's so absurd. Like I think it's huge, and like the original box, is absurd. It's huge. So there's reasons why people would, but that's what makes it a good fit for us. And the other thing I want to say is, like, this is why Rob is a genius in the literal sense as a game designer. Is he has this unbelievable combination of he's a smart guy, and he's got this incredible experience from Hasbro where he worked for a decade, and then obviously all his other designs or whatever and things like that, and it just all comes together. We had no sort of background with that game. But the first thing we always do when we work on a game is we get a copy and we play it and we sort of figure it out. And almost immediately said, I know what to do with this game. He said the original game has one big problem with it. It's the part that's supposed to be chaotic isn't, and the part that's supposed to be, safe is chaotic. And that is like, you roll the die to move. You have no idea how far you're going to move. Like, you have no control over that. But then when you go to roll the fireballs, you can point it exactly where you want it. You can push it, and you know exactly where that marble is going to go.
Yeah.
And he said, we just need to flip those. We need it so that when you decide to move, you can go where you want to go. but when you roll those marbles, you have no idea where they're going. And that's basically what we did. And then beyond that, we brainstormed, just like we wanted to put out a bunch of expansions because we were doing it as a Kickstarter, and we wanted people to be able to get what they, all this wild stuff they could do. So we brainstormed all these ideas. I'm happy. I don't think I've ever told this anywhere. I'm going to drop an exclusive here. So one of the other sort of sideboards we had considered was essentially a roulette wheel that was basically a shark infested waters. You had to go through and try and get through, and then there was a shark that the marble would spin out and land in a certain place. It was too big and it didn't quite fit in. It was hard to make it fit. I mean, it's hard to fit all that stuff on the table as it is. We originally had we were going to have stuff in the trees that would fall off, a few things like that. So we had all these other ideas. We had a few more. We basically just started honing in on all the bees and the snakes and all that stuff. And we're pretty happy. We're happy with the way it turned out, obviously. And it sort of let us plant our flag, so to speak, and on those sorts of big projects.
Oh my gosh, it was amazing, because when I was watching the Kickstarter, and you talked about turning the trees, I was like, what does it turn the trees? And it blocks the path or opens the path for fireballs against an opponent. I was like, oh my gosh, the trees. And I was like, that is such a smart mechanic. There's so much thought there. And in the original game, it's all about getting the jewel.
Right.
It's all about that's it. That's the one focus. And then everyone's stealing the jewel. Here, the jewel's a nice thing to get, but it's not necessary for the win. And I love that it's still there, but I love that it's also not necessary.
Yeah, that's sort of the main thing we do when we're starting on a new restoration, is we say, what is the main hook of the game? And then we sort of put the spotlight on that, turn that up to 11, go bonkers with it. And then just build a modern, game around it that supports that feeds into that. It doesn't have to be a dry Euro, right?
Right.
There's all kinds of wacky stuff you can do, but you just use those modern game sensibilities, like no lose a turns, and instead of roll and move, you're playing cards, so you have some control over it, stuff like that. So yeah, I mean that's sort of what we do, is and then just to sort of put a focus on that toyetic part and make it the star of the show.
You did exactly that. Now, you traveled around with this game to several cons when it was coming out. I was actually at BGG Spring Con when y'all were there showcasing the game. It was going to come out later on that year, but you are showcasing it. I was with my nephews. We were right next to y'all. I looked over. At first, I didn't see you setting it up. I mean, they're like ninjas, folks. They just came to a table and they just automatically populated. Suddenly, there is a mass of people all around here. My nephew's like, what's going on? I said, I don't know. And I kind of stood up and looked over, and I saw, it's like, oh, it's Fireball Island. It's the game. And so I was like showing my nephews, and we were like, no way. There was a long wait line to play, but the table presence. I mean, you kept the 3D board. You could have said, no, we're going to go regular flat board. Come on, guys, get out of your mind with the 3D board stuff. But you went with it, and it looked beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, that was
it's like you needed a reason to drum up even more excitement.
It was an incredible design project, though. You don't think about it, but when you're designing the 3D board, so we started sort of the general layout was on flat paper to just sort of build the paths and figure that out. But then obviously it doesn't work if the marbles don't work. So you quickly have to go into 3D. We tried doing it on an actual computer simulation, but you can't even then get a good feel for how it's going to be. It's like it was an okay start, and it was sort of the middle part. It bridged that, but then ultimately the last part of this design process was Rob. We went to work with a toy design company, basically that's near Rob, that he knew from his prior work, and basically they had a room in their office that had a huge clay version of the island. It was made out of clay. And so Rob would go in a few times a week, a few hours a day, and they would drop a marble, see how it goes, and then shave off a little bit of the path, drop a marble, shave off, or put a little clay here, or move this a little bit, and literally working in clay to design those paths. And then when that was all done, we're like, okay, this is good. We had to send it out to a special 3D scanning facility. Like you can't do it in a regular, way. And they literally take a 3D scan of that island, and that converts it to a file. So it's just a fascinating project to work on, but incredibly challenging. And like I said, the old wouldn't work without Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And then it's funny. So we got done with that. And we said, we're never doing anything that complicated again. Then we immediately went, okay, let's do Dark Tower, which is basically that on steroids, with the electronics and the Bluetooth and stuff. So.
And I'm going to get to Dark Tower. But first, one of the other games y'all reprinted, I was shocked because I thought I was one of the few people who actually remembered Conspiracy. Conspiracy, folks, if you don't remember the original game, it is so unique in that it doesn't have, you don't have a personal player pawn. There are no dice. There are no playing cards. There is no money. It's move and you have a notebook of money. And it was just, I was like, what type of game is this? I discovered it later on in life, to be honest. And when I was looking at just getting vintage games, because I was just enjoying like y'all were talking about, just unique mechanics that you never see in games today. I talk about this for Chopper Strike. I don't know if you're familiar.
Yeah.
That tray.
Yeah.
Why hasn't anyone thought about making superheroes that fly up in the air while the ground battle's going or something? That's just ingenious. And so I appreciate the simplicity, yet the uniqueness of a lot of these games. And I mean, shoot, we could have a whole nother discussion about Waddington and their imagination.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it was so interesting to see that. And then here comes Conspiracy. And I was like, wow, they saw that too.
I had Conspiracy when I was a kid. We definitely played that one quite a bit, and it's that one has not taken off. And I think it's a couple things. First of all, it's hard to explain. Like people don't really understand it until they sit down and play it. So at conventions, when people can demo it, they demo it and then they go get a copy.
Yeah.
But it obviously it's not super popular. It's an older one. Right. It wasn't super popular, even though it was a Spiel des Jahres winner in one of its other formats, Casablanca.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which was sort of a refined version of it. Or it didn't win; it was nominated. In any case,
nominated. Yeah.
It came out really cool. Like Jason Taylor, our graphic designer, did an amazing job with it. So we're really happy with how it looks. And then the other thing that happened is we sort of botched the rollout because this was supposed to be in time for Origins that year,
right?
And we had sort of just missed it, so we had airshipped some in so people could see it, but we couldn't sell a lot of it, and it was a whole big mess. So not everything goes smoothly, but it's a cool game. And it's funny. So this is a poster Jason did for it, and it's my favorite thing that I have. Basically,
there it is in the back there.
He basically did a movie poster for it.
That's awesome.
It has this really cool motif where the agents are on top and Dr. Solomon's underneath in the briefcase. And it's got a great tagline. Everyone has a price and all that. So anyway.
That's great. Now, I've heard in the chat, I've been watching the chat, folks. I'm sorry I'm not addressing the chat that much, but I did see a few people say Unmatched, best game ever. I'm gonna say that Bernardo from Tabletop Island sings praises about Unmatched. A lot of discussions are like wondering who's coming next to Unmatched. Unmatched, if I'm correct, was based off Star Wars Duels.
Star Wars Epic Duels, yeah.
Star Wars Epic Duels, which is another unbelievable game. It was, you talk about the Queen's Gambit being this mecha game for episode 1. Yeah. Well, episodes 2, Epic Game, which kind of it gets overshadowed by Queen's Gambit, was Epic Duels. And Epic Duels is a solid, it was so much fun. And then you come up with Unmatched, which is imagining a billion other characters into the ring. It's the ultimate guys sitting around, girls sitting around talking like, who would win, this person or this person? Right. You're like, well, they never fight in a real match. Yeah, but now they can.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's a perfect. So this was one of us. So Rob worked on that one when he was at Hasbro. So it was sort of always on our radar. And it was one we got requested a lot. And we weren't sure like how we would do it. Obviously, we weren't going to be able to get the Star Wars license. And I sort of just had this idea one day as like, let's turn that into a feature, not a bug, right? So like, let's get all these different heroes, because even in the Star Wars Epic Duels, you could fight Han Solo versus Yoda if that's what you
Yeah.
wanted to do, right?
Yeah.
So that was that mashup, but it was within the single IP. But if we took away the IP, that means we could do whatever we wanted, basically. And it's funny, Rob's told this story before, but basically they sort of cranked that one out. Like they were told, we need a game for this movie that's coming out, and it was Craig Van Ness was one of the lead designer on it. Rob was working with Craig, and they apparently cranked it out like in very short order. But which again, just good. Craig's a genius as well. They're two of these amazing designers sort of working on this game and again, getting out pretty quickly. And you can tell there's a very cool game. There's a few things that are fine for like that mass market type game, and then like we're easy for us to say, hey, this is the part we can sort of tweak a little bit, right?
Right.
Like notably the boards, right? So they had these straight grids. And the thing that was always funny, people would always joke about is if you had a ranged fighter, you had to, be able to, they had to do a straight line to them because they were on a grid. So that if, we're like 10 squares apart and I can shoot you. And then if you move like one space to the left, now I can't see you anymore. All of a sudden I can't shoot you. So we ended up, and that Tannhauser line of sight system that we use in Unmatched, we got from Tannhauser, was actually sort of inspired by Sam Healy of the Dice Tower. He would always say, like, that was one of his favorite games, and it was a great system, and why has no one brought it back? And I was like, yeah, that is pretty good. It's a perfect place to use it. Let's do it. And it worked out really well. And then we, like I said, it's so, I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, but it's been a huge success for us.
Oh, yes, it has. It's been a wild success. You can see everyone in the chat going all over on it. Here we go. I'll show some of these. Yeah. Top tier. Match perfect character representations. Yeah, of course. You say, do I play Imperial? Not yet, but let me show you my camera here. I have it all right there. That's the complete collection. I just haven't gotten around to play it. It's one of those dungeon crawls, and it's going to take a while. But my gaming group is determined this summer we're gonna roll through that. It looks like.
It's I played it. It's a great game, and I like they added the app that they had first made for Descent. That it works really well.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that.
I'm excited. I'm excited. I was excited to get it. I know it went out of print now, and I had to pay a little bit for it, but not as much as it's going to go up in price. I'm sure.
I would assume, yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of things that are overpriced, the original Dark Tower game, I was always intrigued about it, and my buddy Norm from the Board Game Museum was a big Fireball Island for me was Dark Tower for him.
Right. And that was Rob and I too.
Yeah, and so when I went to see him, he's like, he said, you've never played Dark Tower? I said, dude, that wasn't our game. I mean, I didn't even hear about this for the longest because you've got to play it. So he has an original copy.
It literally was in market for 1 year, so it's not surprising.
Yeah, but because of the vintage thing, he thought that I'd played it all. And
right.
So he set me down. We played this game, and I was like, okay, that's pretty unique, especially for its time, And there was a big debate on whether you would ever do Dark Tower. Not with y'all. You knew the when and where probably. Right. But all of us were on the outside looking in going, are they going to do it? No, they would have done it by now. I guess they're not going to do it. And then, of course, they announced they're going to do it. And that Bernardo can correct me if I'm wrong. I may have even said, I guarantee you they're not going to do that tower thing. I said they're going to make that an app. That's the way to go. That's what they're going to do. They're going to make cool pieces. They're going to make new breathing, but it's got to be an app these days. No, you did the tower. Bravo.
So I mean, it's like I said, like you have to find. I mean, the tower is the hook, right? It's in the name, and so originally our original thought was we'll make a tower, but we'll just be like a phone stand that like a lazy Susan, and it's your turn. But you're tapping on the phone.
Right.
And
that's what I thought. Almost
immediately, Rob said, that's great for the first game, but pretty soon you're just going to have the phone. There's no reason to put it in the tower. You're going to leave the tower in the box or put it up on your mantle if it looks nice, but you're not going to use it in the game, and you'll just have the phone and pass it around. Like, why would you bother putting it in the tower? And he was right, of course. And so we knew we had to make the tower integral to the physical part of the game. And then from there, we went through a ton of iterations. I mean, so this is co-designed Isaac Childress. We brought Isaac Childress in because we're huge fans of Isaac Childress's work, and just thought it would be kind of cool on a project this big to bring someone else in and get some outside ideas and things like that. And so we had all these wild ideas on what to do with the tower. Originally, the one that we were working on for a good bit at the beginning, we finally gave it up. You were going to do this whole adventure, and so in the original game, you like do all this stuff, and then you go to fight the tower, and it has maybe the worst, most anticlimactic ending of any board game ever. You go through all this epic, like you could be playing for 2 hours. You go around, you got all the keys,
from city to city. Yep.
And then you go to the tower and you play a little mini game of Mastermind, like get them in the right order. And then you're literally just watching numbers decrease on a screen as the final battle. And it's like, beep, bong, beep, 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 bong. And it's like, retreat or win. And then it plays a cute little ditty at the end, like, da, 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 whatever. Or if you win, right, whatever. And we're like, that was the part we said we could fix that. You would just like make it big, like an ending, like an actual climax, right?
Do this better.
And so we went a little overboard. Our original thought was you do all this stuff and you go to get in the tower, and then the tower actually would like unfold. So it would like fold out like a satellite dish basically. And then the interior would be like the interior of the tower, and it would be like a little dungeon. And then you do this little dungeon crawl, and the boss would be like at the top level, and you'd fight the boss or whatever. And it sounds incredibly cool. And I know everyone's saying like, oh my gosh, why didn't you do that? So aside from the fact that it didn't make the game all that, there were all kinds of wild things where we had a cube tower, and then where the cubes were inside the tower meant thing. The problem is that game itself would have been like 2 hours, like just that part of it. And so it was looking like a 4 or 5 hours, like it just didn't work. It was too much. So, we went back to the drawing board. Then we started working on all different things to do with the tower. We originally had a tower. The idea was that the tower started out in rubble and would actually build in the course of the game, and electronically and mechanically. Like it would actually rise out of the rubble. Again, very cool.
That is super cool.
Believe me, it would be, I no doubt, but just not practical in the end. And so, again, there's just all these iterations of ideas and brainstorming, and then we would work with some engineering companies to see what would work and things like that. We finally sort of settled on what we have here, which we think is a really good balance between sort of special effects and gameplay, right? Like, because if you're out of balance either way, like if the special effects are sort of weak sauce, it's going to be anticlimactic. You could just play a regular game for that. Like, right. It needs to be special. It needs to have the fireworks. But if that's too much, then the game suffers, and it has to be a good game matched with that. And it's taken with literally going to be probably 4 years from the time we first started on it, until it gets into people's hands. And it's been a wild ride for sure. Again, I said we get done with Fireball Island and get started with Dark Tower. We actually started a little bit more than that in terms of the early stuff. And it's just been much bigger project than even Fireball Island by an order of magnitude, I would say.
Oh yeah. Oh yes, it's one of those another big ones there.
Yeah.
So
real quick, I see a question. So Johnny Gaijin asks, is it just brigands again? It is not just brigands. So that was the other thing. The original game, you're just fighting these fungible brigands, right? Which is just the number on the board. And so that's the kind of stuff that we knew we could do, is like put in all different other foes. And because we were doing an app, it gave the phone in your pocket is such a more powerful computer than that original Dark Tower ever was. It can do so many things. I think when a lot of people are upset with the app, they were not a lot, maybe not upset, but they wanted it sort of self-contained like the original. But there's things you can do with an app on a smartphone that you can't do with a physical thing unless it's going to be $1,000 or whatever.
Right.
People are going to be pretty impressed, I think, when they see the final integration of everything. It really is coming together nicely. So
That's crazy. That's crazy. Now, one question I want to ask is well, let me back up. Let me back up because there's something we were talking about. We talked about Hero Quest. Okay.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that y'all wanted that one.
Oh yeah. Not only did we want it, we were close to getting it. Like we were this close.
Do you think Restoration Games, and your success was the reason that they decided to keep it and run it themselves?
Oh, for sure. Yes. 100%.
I mean, obviously, because
I almost know for a certainty that that's the case. Yes.
Okay, because it was like, yeah, we're about to give it, and wait, y'all are making money off this stuff. Money, we like money. Let's do it ourselves.
I don't even think it's about money per se, because it did well for them. Like it was like $2 million, I think, on their. I forget what they call it. It's not Pulse, is it? Anyway,
it's Pulse. It's Pulse, I think.
But for Hasbro, that's pocket change.
That's true. That's true. For Hasbro, that's drops in the bucket.
Yeah,
there.
Exactly.
But I mean,
I think they wanted to do it rather than have someone else do it.
Obviously, I do think y'all are making waves in the industry because it's kind of obvious. Because I'm seeing games come back, just regular reprints of Mall Madness is back in stores, folks. And I'm going, what? Is it where you're trying to find how many empty areas are in the mall? Is that what it is now? I mean, I don't know. Why would you bring that? But I was like, wow. And so all these reprints are coming out. I think it's because they're looking at your success and going, oh, hey, if nostalgia sells.
I was gonna say, I mean, we didn't invent the nostalgia, trade, but I do think it did certainly bring attention.
Popularized it with board games.
I think that's probably true. I think that's probably true.
You're right. Nostalgia has always been there, but board games, nostalgia, those two haven't mixed until y'all came around.
I think that's true to some extent. I certainly won't take all the credit, but yes, I think that's true to some extent. Sure.
Very humble man there.
Sure.
Well, what lies ahead for Restoration Games? What can we look forward to?
So obviously our number one thing right now is getting Dark Tower out the door, and it's close. It's really close, but it's such a huge project. I mean, people cannot even comprehend we have a private Slack channel. We have a private Slack just for Dark Tower. We have our company one, then we have one just for Dark Tower, and a whole bunch of channels in there. And there's one called Engineering. And when I want to feel stupid, I go into the Engineering channel on our Dark Tower Slack, and I see what Andrew and Charlie and Tim are chatting about, and I'm like, okay, I don't even know. This is not even English. I don't know what you people are saying. Is how it's just an unbelievable ride. There's more we can show as we go through, and we'll be doing more updates. And we've done some. I think there was one on the tower that Tim did that was pretty cool. We have the app. Bjorn's been working on this app. It looks amazing. I can't wait to show that off. Anyway, we're trying to get that out the door. We're almost at the finish line. Meantime, obviously, we've been working on Unmatched. And the thing is, it's super popular, but it's also super fun to work on. Like, it's incredibly fun to work on because basically we sit around and think of who we'd like to have fight, right? Yeah. And we have a list of 20 or 30 heroes that we could do. And we try and make good sets that would be fun to fit together and make sure we've got good diversity from different cultures and genders and all that stuff. And it's a fun little puzzle. And then we're going to do these heroes. And then it's like, oh, I want to do this deck. I want to do this deck. And you go and you draft this deck. It's not going to work the first time out. Yeah. But it's fun just because the nature of that game is where it's just the deck. You don't need to worry about fitting in, you can make the deck do whatever you want to emulate that hero. Is super creative, and it's just a ton of fun to work on. So we will keep, again, I've said this, I will be happy to continue working on these and producing Unmatched sets as long as people support it, because it's a blast. And I mean, we have Battle of Legends Volume 2 coming out. We've announced one of the heroes, Yanenga. She's a princess warrior from Burkina Faso, and she's got a really cool mechanical hook that we've sort of hinted at, but we haven't really seen it. I saw Jeremiah in the chat. He knows. He's one of our playtesters.
Oh, okay.
And then the three other people in that set are a ton of fun and very different from the stuff we've done before. Then we've got the 4 Marvel sets that we're working on. And those are again a ton of fun. We're all big comics fans, and we all have our favorites. So like, oh, I want to work on Elektra, you know,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So it's a lot of fun. And then we've got a bunch. We had the contest, so now we've got all these other heroes, and the contest was a huge success. We had people design decks and submit them, and then we picked the winners, and we were only going to pick 4. But the decks were so good, like people. That's what really was eye-opening, is the passion for this game, is seeing literally like 500 entries in this contest. Bananas. And we had all these good ones. So we got like 12 decks, 12 decks over like 4 or 5 sets or whatever it is that we've got slated for the next 2 years or whatever. In addition to a few other things we haven't announced, some other licensed stuff that we haven't announced, but that's over the next few years. So then in the meantime, we are also working on Key to the Kingdom, which is a game we announced a couple years ago.
Right.
We had a few fits and starts with it, but it's coming together now. And honestly, if it weren't for Dark Tower, it'd be out by now.
Yeah,
but it looks amazing, and it's a ton of fun. It's just so what we've been saying in house is, if Return to Dark Tower is our Lord of the Rings, then Key to the Kingdom is our Princess Bride. It's just it's sort of a fun, funny, accessible. And it looks gorgeous. The art's amazing. Andrew Bosley did the art for that, who did Everdell, among other things.
Yeah, if you don't know, folks, Key to the Kingdom was an older game. I did a review on it.
Yeah.
I had a copy for a while. It's the most frustrating game because it looks like you have a great idea. The board unfolds into a different land. You're like, oh my gosh, I've never seen that before. It's amazing. And it is a drudge to play through. And no fan rules have been successful for me in making that game fun. And Bernardo was the first one to text me and say, did you hear what they announced? I was like, what? He went, Key to the Kingdom. I went, are they a glutton for punishment? They're going to have to totally make that completely different from the base game, because that game was just it aggravated me because it looks great. It's a great idea. The artwork was zany and I enjoyed it, but I was like, oh my gosh, this is a headache to play through.
Yeah, it's like a roll and move squared, because you're rolling and moving, and then you're rolling and trying to get through the things, and it's really just rolling.
That's it.
And so that's we have the designers Ben Rossett and Matthew O'Malley, who've designed a number of things. They just recently designed one, Search for Planet X, that I think did it get nominated for something? Anyway, it's been doing very well. Good designers. They tackled it first, and they did a lot of like the real nuts and bolts of it, and then we did the development and the final development on it. And ultimately, you're right. Ultimately, what it comes down to is, it's what I said before, right? Like, what's the hook of that? People like that game, or they think they do. They're like, oh, I love that game. Exactly.
Don't go back and play it. You'll ruin your childhood.
The reason why, right, is the hook. It's that board is so cool.
It's amazing. I love that mechanic.
Never seen any other game do it since.
No.
So we knew it was cool. We knew we had to do it. We just had to crack the other stuff.
Yeah.
And we made the mistake we often make, was we got too complicated with it. We tried to turn it into like this heavy, like dungeon crawl.
Dungeons and Dragons, yeah.
And then we brought it back, and now it's just it's all about, it's still all the dice rolling, but it's just a lot more mitigation, so that you have more control over it. But it's also a lot snappier to play. Like, it's not a drudge. And that was a big thing for us. So like, when you go to do an adventure, you do it on one turn. It's done, one and done. Like, that's it. You either do it or you don't. Anyway, we'll have more to talk about that when we start getting ready to release it. The art's amazing. It's got some fun jokes in it and stuff. So
there is such a low. Oh, great! I hope it has some of those original wild beasts that you have to fight.
Yeah, we have a lot of sort of the characters are in there, and then we took that and ran with it and made all it. So it's got that sort of cheekiness.
Okay.
We turned that up to 11 also, and then the big thing also in the original game, same thing, is you find the key and get out, and like, that's it. The end is kind of anticlimactic also.
Yeah.
So we wanted like the end to be more like, go fight the Demon King, right? So we'll have more to talk about that.
I'm excited. The bar was set so low with the original game that you can't do wrong. But I am excited to see what you have planned on that one. That one looks exciting too. Now, I don't know. I'm thinking about this. I don't know if you can answer my next question without giving anything away. But my last question was, do you have a wish list of games that you wish y'all could get your hands on to reprint?
Sure.
You see, you got to be very careful how you answer that.
So I'll say this: we have that list, and I told you the top 3. And then there's that next tier, which are still a lot of suggestions. And there's definitely a couple games on there that we've got our eye on. And we will have a big announcement a little later this fall. Actually, the announcement will be a little sooner.
Oh.
Haven't announced this yet, but we are looking at doing another Kickstarter towards the end of the year.
Uh-oh.
With an announcement soon.
So once Dark
when I
Tower
say
wraps,
soon, I don't know what we're
once
planning
Dark
on
Tower wraps, y'all are headed to the net. Okay. All right.
And then we have one more other sort of announcement that we'll be making this year that I think folks will be excited on. I can't say much more than that because Susan and Rob will both kill me.
There you go. There you go. Sworn to secrecy. That's right. That's right. We have Bernardo crying for Tornado Rex.
All right. It is not Tornado Rex, I'm sorry to say, but it is. That's what we've looked at. I mean,
okay, so
it's what we've looked at, but
it's one of those things like I can't give away all the secrets, folks. I got to keep some mystery there.
No, it's not even that. It's that. For me, it's never say never is my thing. Is like I don't want to say we're not going to do something because there were things that we didn't think we were going to do, and they sort of at the last minute stuff came together, and we ended up doing them. So
yeah, okay, so that's fair. Other ones that I was thinking about because I wrote a list. Now, Bernardo, you remember this? I could not find the live stream we did. We actually made y'all one of the topics of our little. We had a 4 people who do vintage board games. Retro Board Gamer was there with us, and we were giving our little wish list of things we wanted from Restoration Games. And Bernardo, I've changed mine slightly since then because Curse of the Idol is another old Milton Bradley game that's just horrible and it needs better mechanics because it looks really nice. Are you familiar with this one?
I am. Is that the one?
It's the one where you're turning the sword that turns the wheels that moves around. You punch the sword into one of the 6 slots, and hopefully that's where the blood gem is. But there's a lot of repetitiveness in it, and it's just kind of it takes longer to play than it should. It should be more tight.
I'm gonna look it up real quick because I feel like was there like Curse of the Idol, right?
Curse of the Idol.
Yeah. Hold on one second. I feel like no, this wasn't it. There was one that got redone with like a He-Man theme, but this wasn't it. This is a different one. Oh yeah, I do remember this one. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another one, I don't have this game, but it seems like all my other buddies do. It's Tower of the Wizard King.
Oh, that's the one where you like change, like
you change the people there. You hit
the
button, and I'd love to if it didn't cost $1 million.
Right. So these are all great because, like I said, if they have that one cool hook, this is why I would say, like, I have no plans to do that, but I would totally do it in a heartbeat. And it might be a question where we sort of just, hey, let's do that one, There
you go. And then one that I hear from all of us, this is me included. You may have heard this Omega Virus.
I'm not familiar with that one. Just kidding. Yes.
Such a liar.
we get that one a lot.
Yes, you do.
I think we all know what the hook is for that one. It's the annoying computer voice. Die, human scum.
Die, human scum. 6 more minutes till I take over.
That's pretty good, actually.
I'll tell you what. Hey, if you need someone to record the voices for the Omega Virus, I do pro bono work for Restoration Games.
All right. Okay. Noted.
And then my personal, and Bernardo's going to kill me for even asking about this. I absolutely friggin' love this game. I played it with Flip from Flip the Table. It at my very first Gen Con, McDonald's the board game.
Okay, I'm going to tell you something else I've never told in public before. Is we actually looked into this very seriously and actually talked to McDonald's about it, and it just never came to be. It's the short version.
No way. Bernard, are you listening to this? Are you listening to this?
This was one. this was what we were looking at. We got into talks, and it just like we couldn't make it happen, basically. And then we thought about like doing it without the IP. It's totally doable. It's not the same.
It's not the same as asking for that Big Mac, those McNuggets, the shake, McRibs. I actually, Norm from the Board Game Museum and I actually kind of worked on a little expansion for the base game too, because we were just so excited about. It's just such. It's folks, for people who don't know, you're thinking McDonald's game. No thanks. It's a fun little game, vintage game. Came out what, late 70s, early 80s?
I don't remember now. Yeah,
it's an older game, but you're giving off an order. People are racing to put the right order in there. If they get it wrong, then they don't get it. You get points. But on top of that, you got to throw a marble into the sign thing that collects the marbles. And even if you threw it first, if someone threw it just right, if theirs goes down first, they get to present their order first. I mean, it's
the thing. Yeah, the thing I always thought was cool about the thing that made it work for me, and actually was like a bit of, I would say, like modern design, because you would think a game from this era would it. So basically what it is, it's a speed memory game. Someone reads off an order and then you have to put your little pieces together to make their order. What's cool is when they read off the order and you're reading off like a card or whatever it is, I forget, card of some sort. They always switch it up in there. It's like, let me have 2 hamburgers and a fries and a milkshake. And you know what? Make one of those hamburgers a cheeseburger instead. And so they switch it in the middle.
Yeah.
And so you have to like remember and then change it.
Yeah.
And then keep remembering. And that's the part that makes it super cool to me.
Those cards are the best too. There are certain cards that are just straight order. Then sometimes they go, oh, wait, change out one of those hamburgers with a fillet of fish, please. And when you say please, that's the go time.
Yes.
And it's so funny because you're like, oh, wait a minute, I put 2 hamburgers and a fish fillet.
Yes. Yeah.
I love. Okay, so we got to talk to McDonald's. They never say never on this. Never say never.
Never say that. I would still never say never. You never know. It could still happen.
What is McDonald's doing? Come on, they need a board game. It goes well with them.
What's interesting is their head chef. I don't know if he was the literal head chef, but it's Chef Mike.
Yeah.
He was a huge board gamer, so that was sort of part of it. And then he left sort of in between, and he's doing his own thing now. He's got a cooking show or something. He's a cool guy. And we sort of just never had a connection after that and couldn't make it work. And, again, for McDonald's, it's kind of small potatoes.
Right. That's not where they're.
It's not like a Avengers tie-in or anything.
Let me ask you, do they license out much?
I don't know. I mean, certainly, I don't know these days.
See McDonald's T-shirts at Target, or now that I'm thinking about it, I don't see McDonald's action figures in the toy line. I don't know why you'd want the Furious Fry Guys. Oh gosh, there you go. You get the rights, you can put them in Unmatched too.
There you go.
How would Ronald McDonald go up against Bruce Lee?
Yeah, or the Hamburglar, he would be better.
Or a Hamburglar. Yes, Grimace. He's just like a giant gumdrop. I don't know what that dude is. That's incredible. That is incredible that you spoke to McDonald's about that. Bernardo, you are never going to hear me stop talking about this. You're never. And I want you to tell Luke from across the pond that Matt was right. Oh man, that is fantastic that you know that little game. Now I know another suggestion that y'all get a lot of is Waddington games, old Waddington games. But there's a problem with copyrights there, isn't there, for y'all?
No, it's not. No? It's so sort of big picture is every game is different. There's no like these games are all off limits or these games are all good or whatever. Every game is different. So Key to the Kingdom, in fact, was a Waddington game. It was originally published by Waddington. So Waddington's got bought out by Hasbro, basically owns their catalog at this point. What's interesting about Waddington's is that a lot of the games that they did were licensed. Their licensing agreements with the inventors of the games were different than what you would normally have seen, like for a Fireball Island or something here. So real simple is and one of the things we always do when we're looking at a game is we always go to the original inventor, even before we talk to whoever might own the rights, like a publisher or whatever. It's funny. I'm actually doing another stream tomorrow where I'm talking about some legal issues, and so talking about some of these things. But short version is that you probably heard this before, is you can't copyright the mechanics to a game. And so there's all these different pieces of it. There's the trademark in the name, there's the copyright in the art, there's the mechanics, which are most likely not protected, and things like that. And so one of the things we always do, regardless of what those legal rights, is we go to the original inventor, because especially, Rob was insistent on this, and I'm obviously happy to go along, is that we want to be respectful of those people's inventions, even if they don't have the legal rights they maybe should have, or it's just the way games work. It's a weird sort of quirk in the system of the rights in a game design. And so we went to him. He had his contract. The contract had essentially a cancellation provision. We canceled the contract, and then we licensed the game directly with the inventor for Key to the Kingdom. Again, if you say Waddington Games, are there other games of theirs that we do? Like, yeah, there's certainly some we've looked at. What is it? Lost Valley of the Dinosaurs, I think, was theirs. I don't know if you've seen that one.
That's a great. I have that one.
Yeah, it's a perfect. It's got all this toyetic stuff with it. So yeah, there's definitely some we've looked at. Was there a specific? I can't remember. Was there a specific one you were?
Well, no, but I want to address this one. Did you talk to the Fireball Island inventor?
Both of them. So there's a little bit of I don't want to say a dispute, but there are two people who were involved. Okay. They were both involved in sort of different ways. And yes, we've dealt with both of them. So
how do you track those people down?
Sometimes it's hard and sometimes it's not. And sadly, a lot of the games that we're dealing with are pretty old, so a lot of times they passed away.
Yeah.
But sometimes I just find them on Facebook, or so the designers for Fireball Island still have design companies, and you can just go to their webpage and call them up. So.
Wow, that is insane. That's incredible.
Yeah, Bernard was talking about the original prototype for Fireball Island is bananas. So yeah, it's like it was made out of clay and painted, and it was a big temple, and it's wild.
Yeah, well, every time there's the plan, and then there's we want the Dark Tower to have these sides that open up.
Exactly.
We want the Dark Tower, and it's like we gotta get too carried away. Got to pull back the reins a little bit.
Yeah.
I want sparklers to shoot out the front there.
So when we were brainstorming Dark Tower, we had a list. We just said, pretend nothing is off limits, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we looked into smoke and making the board rumble like an actual earthquake.
Oh wow!
And one of the things we were really close, I think, to doing. So ultimately, we could have done a lot of these things, and then the game would have been like $250. It's already absurdly expensive, and we know this. We know this is expensive, and part of that bothers me in a way. But you can't do the game, and if you were going to do the game Dark Tower and make it into that it would be much more affordable, it wouldn't be. That's not why you would want that game. The game has to be over the top.
Exactly. A game like that, a game like Fireball Island, does have to be over the top. I totally agree with that. And then plus, what you're dealing with is you're based off nostalgia. Those people remember the game. For people like me who I can afford it. I'm happy to fork over that Fireball Island. And then you have those avid gamers today that are growing up that never even played the original, like that little baby on Tabletop Island. That little youngin. He never played the original Dark Tower. He thought it was garbage, but he's so excited about the new version because it looks so totally awesome. Yeah. These games are also designed for the younger generation for these gamers to enjoy. And to be honest, it's a great, I cannot tell you how much I love the concept of restoration games, because someone like me who would have kids that were, let's say, old enough to, I got late started with getting kids, but they'd be, in their teens if I had them regularly years ago. Then you come out with this game. I used to play it all the time. Yeah, kids, look, we're going to get this game because this is something that Dad used to play all the time. But now it's not just roll and move. It's a lot more. So it's more that they can get involved in, they can get hooked on. it is a great idea and a great concept, and y'all have executed it basically flawlessly for so many years. It's an incredible because for me, all I want is more Fireball Island expansions. I love that game.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. That's very humbling. I appreciate that. We will have some Fireball Island news later this year. I have nothing to announce, but and I don't know that it's going to make everyone happy, but it's big news, so we'll see.
I'm excited for that. I'm excited for that. But I also know that you got to grow beyond that one game, and that y'all have had so many big hits, and you're using, I mean, just the blueprints that y'all have for it is just incredible, that you're taking these games, you're reimagining them for today's gaming world, and then they're just exploding in popularity. I really, my hat's off to everyone involved in Restoration Games. I'm so impressed.
Again, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, all right. So anything, what give us some hits on. Oh, I want to mention, by the way, if you're interested in any of these games right now, you can actually go to Restoration Games website. They have these games available for you, and you're thinking, oh man, I don't know if I can afford the shipping. Yeah, you can. Shipping's $5 in the US. $5. That's all it, because they're crazy. They're giving it away, folks.
Yeah.
$5. And another thing,
it wasn't as crazy when we started that policy. Shipping's gotten a little bananas lately, but yeah.
Yeah. But $5 shipping. So get as many games as you want from their website. Also, one of the things I did notice was that y'all are Shriners fans, and a portion of your sales go to Shriners. My wife is also a Shriner supporter, and we always would support at the circus. My wife would buy the big box that we're never going to eat of Cracker Jacks. Don't let old Cratchety me say, you can get the same box at Sam's for $5, not 25. But that's not the point. Point is, you're giving to a good cause. If you buy the little light or the little glasses, hold on, I still have. This is the record for the longest. I can't find them. They're somewhere over here. I'm not going to dig through them. But I still have the old glow up glass, because she would always buy the little trinkets. They usually break by the time you get home.
Sure, yeah.
But the thing is that's not the point. All that money is going to the kids, and she loves the Shriners at all. So that y'all do that. That's really awesome too. How'd you become involved with that charity?
My daughter was born with a limb difference. She's missing some fingers on her left hand, and honestly, it's not been a big issue. Like since she was born with it, she's just sort of acclimated to it. But the Shriners hospitals, they specialize in a number of different areas. Specialize in medical care for kids, but they have some specialties in like orthopedic issues with like limb differences and spinal issues and things like that. And then also they have a very big burn unit or burn treatment section as well. But there was a Shriners Hospital in Philadelphia that my daughter, we would take her there once a year, just sort of for checkups. And, they would see like if she needed a prosthetic or something. But again, in her case, it's really not been a huge issue, but we got to see sort of firsthand the work that they were doing and see some of the kids, we're in the waiting room and we're seeing all these kids, and just seeing that operation is just mind blowing, the work that they do. And again, 100% free for the kids that go there who need their help. It's to see the relief on some of these families, to know that they're getting some of the best care in the world for their kids that they would not otherwise be able to provide for, and not have to worry about insurance, not have to worry about bills and all that. It's an unbelievable charity that we've been happy to support. They're a great organization.
They are, and they get overshadowed. St. Jude's, who does the same thing for cancer patients for kids, they got a lot of celebrity support. They got a lot of money coming in. They get a lot of marketing out there, a lot of recognition. You're thinking, oh, that's great. They're not the only ones. And I think the Shriners, even though you say the name, people know who they are, but they're just not in the first, the forefront in the mind when you're thinking charities. And like I said, my wife's a big fan, and so she was happy to see that. I was happy to see that too, and that's really awesome that y'all do that. So yeah, everyone's saying in there, yeah. Oh, there, forgot Benjamin, my co-host. Yeah, from Saturday Morning Sandwich Ranch. That's right. That's right. Fantastic. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, Benjamin told that story, folks, a few episodes ago. Was it a couple months ago on the podcast? So I forgot about that. But yeah, so that's an awesome organization. It's awesome that y'all do that with them. But okay, so where else can we find you? You're on Twitter. Now, see, folks, he's older than me, but he's on Twitter. He's on Facebook. He's on Instagram. He's on whatever the newest, hippest app is. You can find Justin. And by the way, he knows all the little text messages, SMH and LOL and PBSDDB boo. I don't know what it is, but I don't know what those mean. But you know what? This guy knows because he's hip. So tell.
Yeah, not quite. One out of all of those is true. I like Twitter. I'm on Twitter a lot, and you, by all means, come follow me on Twitter. I mostly tweet about silly stuff, but also, occasionally information about the games and whatnot. It's at Restoration Game. No extra S because it's a little too long. I actually really do not like Facebook, and we are there, but I force myself once a week to go over there and try and reply to comments and things like that, but I'm really not good on that. We do have also a great Discord. I think Bernardo's on there. I'm not sure. But yeah, I was gonna say the Discord
that lurker's everywhere. I mean, that dude, I'm telling you what.
The Discord is it's a great little community that we have. Everybody, especially for Unmatched. Like if you're an Unmatched fan, it's probably the best place to go and just shoot the breeze about Unmatched. And we have channels for people making fan decks and channels for people trying to find games online. And if you have rules questions and what heroes you want to see and all that stuff. So, but then also other games and stuff too. So
there you go. Well, thanks again for coming on. Really happy. Really enjoyed this chat.
Me too. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And guys, be sure to check them out. Check out Restoration Games and get ready for the new announcements that are coming out toward the end of the year. I know they're going to blow your mind. Even though I don't know what they are, they're going to blow your mind. All right, everyone, have a good